So, Judy and Punch is a live-action adaptation of Punch and Judy. Written and directed by Mirrah Foulkes and starring Mirrah Wasikowska as Judy and Damon Herriman as Punch, the film follows the married couple and stage duo Punch and Judy. They have a stage show at Punch's Puppet Theatre in the town, where Punch is known as, in his own words, the greatest puppeteer of his generation. I hadn't actually heard of this film until the other day when I was just browsing to see what was on. I saw that it had a fairly limited release with just one midday screening each day, but it was starring Mirrah Wasikowska, who, if you're familiar with, is usually in some pretty good stuff. My favourite being Park Chan-wook's Stoker. There's also Crimson Peak and then there's Damon Herriman, who starred twice as Charles Manson this year, as well as lots of stuff I haven't actually seen, but he's cool, and those two together is an exciting enough concept to go and see the film. It's easy to complain about films not really having any originality at the moment. There's endless Disney adaptations right now of their own films. There's prequels, sequels, dequels, and the endless shitting machine that is Marvel Studios. I don't think someone could fart in the Disney studios without it being adapted into a 2.5-hour feature. That being said, the film adaptation of Punch and Judy sounded great to me, so shut up. Spoilers. From this point onwards, there will be juicy spoilers. You can see from the offset the film's pretty sexy. Lovely jubbly production design and costume, which is clearly based on the original puppet show. The puppet theatre is great. There's a real sense of atmosphere in the scenes there. The locations are so nice. You're never quite sure where it was actually filmed, but it does look kind of medievally European, which is nice. Main house is great, works as a nice sort of centre to the strange lives of some of the characters. And overall, I do get a sense of a village and also a separate evil forest. So physically, the world's quite nice. I like it. Thanks for coming, world. Damon Herriman does look like a puppet. Not in a rude way, but like, whoever casted him did a great job. If you were to imagine Punch as a real man, he would pop into your head. The opening scene's strong. We follow a hooded character darting through the streets of the village until we're inside the puppet theatre and introduced to the Punch and Judy show. Damon's Punch is striking and convincing as he comes on stage, and you're actually brought into and believe in a world where puppeteering really is the height of entertainment. But big buttery biscuit base, as the film unravels, it sort of falls apart. And for me, it just didn't quite reach the mark it was going for in a lot of ways. The thing that I just could not look past, which brought me out of the film, was the tone. It really wasn't clear what the tone of the film wanted to be. During the first act, we had Happy Stoning Day, a literal day celebrating because some women were going to be stoned. Happy Stoning Day was shouted in the streets, people excitedly buying rocks to throw at witches. The rocks didn't really look very heavy. I didn't believe they were real rocks. This scene echoed Monty Python's Life of Brian.
You're making it worse for yourself!
Then we heard a list of ridiculous reasons the women were being stoned, such as a woman caught by her husband staring at the moon for a suspicious amount of time, at which point this scene from the Holy Grail sprung to mind.
What makes you think she's a witch?
Well, she turned me into a newt!
A newt?
I got better.
Which isn't a bad thing. And there was also the baby being ridiculously dropped or thrown out of a window. Again, dark, but it was kind of funny, and it is a concept originally done in the Punch and Judy puppet show. But these dark, humorous parts came in drips and drabs, and they didn't always fit in with the other themes of the film. It felt like the film was holding back, and by the third act of the film, we'd lost a lot of the Monty Python-esque comedy to a more revenge theme tone, which I'll come back to. But it was like the film wanted to go full-on dark comedy, but then didn't. It just felt confused, like it was holding back. This leads on to the character's motivation and development just being weird and unconvincing and unfinished. During the opening scene of the film, Punch is confident in front of the audience, but then backstage we see him anxiously asking his wife if the audience liked it and describing how he's looking forward to the big break that he's hoping to get in his career. We learn that he has a drinking problem at this point, which we later see changes him to do bad things, but at that point he clearly loves his wife and career. Then he drunkenly burns the baby and kills his wife, does a Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing in the mirror where he accepts what he's done. Maybe fair enough, as he's meant to be evil when he's drunk, but then once he sobers up, he shows no remorse whatsoever and happily blames two very innocent people who he didn't seem to hate that much at the start. I'm just unsure of his character the whole way through, and I don't think that's just because he's supposed to have a good side and a bad side. Oh, burp. Then there's Judy's character. Disappointingly underdeveloped for what that character's supposed to be and the message she's supposed to be giving. So she dies and is discovered by little girls who live in the forest in a camp of outcast witches. Once she wakes up and screams, she speaks with some of the girls/women and then just hangs about for a day at the camp after just sort of brief conversations with people she doesn't know. Then the next evening or something, the old doctor witch with the constantly changing accent tells her she won't be accepted back in the village as everyone will think she's a witch. Okay, maybe. But as far as Judy and they know, potentially nobody knows she's missing back in the village. They have no idea what Punch did after he attempted to kill her. As far as they know, he could have done a runner just without saying anything, or just claimed she'd gone missing. Also, it was strongly insinuated that the baby was incinerated before she was whacked over the head by Punch. But she never actually confirmed the baby was dead. She was knocked out at home and then woke up in the forest. So as a mum who didn't actually see her baby's body, just a shoe, and not actually knowing what happened after she got knocked out, she must have a million questions. But no, she's just gonna hang about in the forest being a bit weird for a day until a witch doctor thing told her she couldn't go back as everyone would think she's a witch and she'd be hung or stoned because of it. And Judy seemed to just listen and hung around with these strangers. It seemed like they just needed a reason for her to stick about in the forest so the plot could build back in the village. Then we see later on, after doing some yoga and chopping rabbits with the forest people, Judy watches them having a good time. I think they're dancing and singing. She's just part of them now. Is she sure, she's just joined them. She's one of them. After a while, she just walks off into the forest with her hood up, back to the village, just completely unmotivated. Gets to the village, just snoops about in her hood. It's not really explained what she was planning to do. And after watching Punch's disastrous show where he was too drunk to perform and then he starts a brawl, she discovers her nice servants will be hung because they've been framed, which then motivates her to set up the whole haunting Punch in bed thing. I think the biggest problem with Judy's story arc is that she spends a lot of it in the forest, but there isn't a single atom in my body that cares even remotely about anybody who has been banished to that forest. Supposedly these are regular people who have all been banished from this small village, yet Judy doesn't seem to recognise or actually know a single person. There's a few standout characters like the mysterious sort of doctor and the one that looks like Claire Balding, but there's no depth to these people. There's nothing there that makes me care about any of them or the fact they've been banished. Yes, banished is sad and the women's treatment in the film is awful, but there's no substance to the characters to really show this. The only time there's any depth is when Claire Balding conveniently tells all the other witches, which is Judy's life story. They all sit around and she says how Judy was in a big family, all but Judy and the servants were killed by a plague. Punch came into town, Judy fell in love and joined him as a puppeteer. Now the audience knows why Punch and Judy were living with the old people. Thanks for the exposition, Claire. Apart from that, I don't really know anything about the other women, other than the fact that they've been banished because they were falsely accused of being witches. But why do they live in a forest? Like, they have goats and tents and tools and food and rabbits and water, and they were kicked out of their homes for dumb reasons by dumb people. So why not just move to another village? Also, Is there any magic in this world or not? Someone explain. The branches to their witch camp seemed to open magically when they arrived. And then when Judy went back to haunt, quotation marks, haunt Punch, after she discovered the two servants were going to be hung for her murder, she made a human puppet out of herself and a coat which danced around in the air in his room and then had literal demonic voices which came from different parts of the room. Yes, Judy was good at magic tricks, but that was magic. You can't do that in a trick. Same way as when she screamed after first waking up in the forest, everybody in the village either heard or felt something strange. So was that magic? Is there magic in this universe? Are witches actually real? These women have supposedly been banished for stupid made up reasons, but there does actually seem to be some magic. It just takes me back to the point about tone. The world seems underdeveloped, which just leads the audience to not fully understand it. The film climaxed with the two servants standing at the gallows, scared by Judy's magic puppet thing, whatever that was, in his room the night before. Punch almost admits that the two who are about to be hung are innocent until he hesitates and someone screams, "We love you, Punch," and the crowd cheers. But it was only the night before that he actually disgraced himself in front of all those people, ruined his own show, and then started a mass brawl. So why do they still love him? Then the hanging fails, and Judy and the outcasted witches emerge from the forest in a sort of, wow, heroes have returned. Think Lord of the Rings or something, when a backup army shows up to defeat the enemy after the good guys thought they'd lost. And the audience is punching the air, there's a happy atmosphere, yeah, they've done it.
I cheered. I shouted, I fist pumped the air, I cried.
Nobody was punching the air in the cinema I was in. By this point, nobody cared about any of the witches. They were all so unimportant and underdeveloped that I don't care. Judy could have showed up alone with the exact same effect. Anyway, they all came over to the gallows. Judy was on a horse, and the horse stopped, and she did a sort of triple somersault onto the gallows. That was just really weird and out of place in character for her. I don't know why that happened. Did she learn that in the forest? Because they didn't show it. Anyway, she has a big speech about how the witches have been outcast for no reason. She starts naming different women and their jobs before they were outcast and how the village has suffered because of this. Which is interesting because we learn that they were actually prominent normal members of the village at one point, but it's also not interesting because it's the end of the film and this is the first time we learn any of this, and there's just no impact. So the film goes from a quirky fable in the first half hour to a drawn out revenge hanging about in a forest that might be magic, might not be magic. What is it? Then by the end of the film, it just felt unsure of itself. Themes and tones from the start of the film were gone. The message at the end falls flat because I don't care. I don't care about any of them or their journeys. It sadly includes Judy at this point, which is sad because when you think about it, the original Punch and Judy puppet show is just domestic violence. There's some sausages involved, but it's sort of just a man hitting his wife. The film's events mirror the puppet performance shown at the start of the film, but I feel like the ending was supposed to be a stand against what the original show is about. I think it was supposed to put a woman back in the powerful position and have Judy as a strong character, which is great. It's a nice turn on an original and outdated idea. But the sad truth is, I just didn't care about her, which is annoying because I wanted to, but I just couldn't. All of these points are so disappointing because I really wanted to like this film. I love the concept. A lot of the characters were great. I loved the hangman. The old servant was funny. There were some really strong scenes and it actually had a good runtime of 1 hour and 46, so it wasn't overdrawn. It wasn't too short, too long. So in summary, the film had heaps of potential but just didn't quite make it. It had a great physical world, great costume design, set casting, locations, but that was ultimately let down because it was unsure of itself. The film didn't know quite what it wanted to be, which could have been down to writing. I don't know. I wasn't there. You tell me. I just know that even whilst watching it, I wanted to like it, but I couldn't quite fully like it. That being said, I would recommend you actually go and see it for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. You might love it. I might be wrong. Probably am. So if I was to rate this film, I'd give it a solid out of, ooh, that's fantastic. Thanks for watching. If you subscribe, you'll stay up to date with all my videos. Also, don't forget to leave a like and join the discussion in the comments, or just insult me, or whatever. See ya. Cheers. Bye.